Free your mind now. Be part of the People's Pan-African Parliament. The Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.
At this juncture, I'd like to call upon Mr. Gerishom Okonda from Kenya. He's also going to further elaborate on African unity and where we go from here and the role that the Pan-African Pyramid can play. Can you have a round of applause, please, as he comes out to the
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, esteemed leaders who are present here, brothers and sisters of Africa, who are from diaspora, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. All protocol observed. I was given a subject to share with you from research, from experience as an educationist on how we can be able to decolonize the mind of Africans. So my conversation will be revolving around matter education. I had prepared my conversation in a manner that I will read it. One, just to make sure I'm disciplined with matter time, but I know we shall have more time to discuss during the question and answer time. I will start by saying that it's both a privilege and a sacred responsibility to stand before you this evening here in the heart of Kampala, Uganda, at the 8th Pan-African Pyramid Global Award and the 11th anniversary dinner. We gather not merely to celebrate achievements, but to reignite a fire, maybe for the generation that was born during the time of matchsticks and gaslighters, that an African man was well equipped with a special stick, igniting on a special stone where fire was lit. For me, that is a software that is lying dormant that we have to reawaken today. Who say that we never used to have our own source of igniting fire? And so be prepared that this evening we are going to put our mind together and see how can we be able to decolonize our mind and think a bit different for us to get different results. They say if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over, expecting different results, the only closest mindset of a person can be compared to is a mad person. And so for us to get different results, we need to do things differently. And so, as an African proverb says, until the lion have their own history, or their own historians, the history of the hunt as an activity will always glorify the hunter. So today, let us be historians, the philosophers, the knowledge bearers, and above all, the liberators of our own mind. So why decolonize the African mind? I'll be slow in my conversation so that if you have a question to ask, you can put it down and see exactly how this conversation can bring a change. Colonization was not only about land. Many times when we talk about colonization, we're talking about, our land was taken away. Our heritage, our culture was demeaned. But let me tell you, the real colonization was the colonization of the mind. Sometimes it's not about the hardware, it's about the software. The greatest conqueror of Africa was not seizing of territories. It was not the captivity of the thought. It was the captivity of our mindset. When Europe invaded Africa, it did not only carry guns, neither did it just carry Bibles, neither did it just carry the textbooks. It carried schools, it carried churches, it carried more dangerously the language. The one, if I teach you my language and I make you look at your language as the third material, then already your identity has been lost. Ngugi wa Thiong'o, one of the greatest Kenyan sons, once said that the biggest weapon wielded and actually daily unleashed by imperialism is the cultural bomb. The effect of cultural bomb is to annihilate a people's belief in their names, in their language, in their heritage, in their unity, in their capacity, and ultimately in themselves. That is exactly what we must undo. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to start unlearning what we learned yesterday and start relearning freshly. Of course, when we are more informed about how the knowledge of yesterday of the colonizer affected the way we live today and affected what we believe in today. I will make a quote from Kwame Nkrumah, who reminded us that we face neither east or west, but we face forward. So facing forward means standing in the firm foundation of African wisdom, while also engaging the modern world with dignity. Brothers and sisters, when a child learns that God speaks only English, only French and Portuguese, but not language like Luganda or Kiswahili or Zulu or Yoruba or Luo, then we are already getting cheated. When we need to start questioning why all angels had English or European names. Was it just the spread of religion, or was it mind conditioning? When we teach philosophy only from the Greek, but forget the Egypt and the Timbuktu housed libraries and universities long before even the Athens, then colonization will continue. The mind must be freed from Africa to be free. Until we free our mind, Africa is not yet free. And freeing of our mind will start today, this evening. All of us must be ready for the game. The chain of the mind are heavier than the chain of the body. All we learn in history is about how our ancestors were chained. But we rarely talk about how our mind was chained. If I may borrow shortly from a story of a young man who was called Kunta Kinte, who was forced to take a new name. His name was Kunta Kinte, but the colonizers gave him a new name and told him, say your name is Toby. And he refused. He kept saying, my name is Kunta Kinte. And he was whipped. On chains, he was chained. But he kept refusing until that time when the pain was more unbearable. gave in just to make sure that now I'm no longer going to be whipped. But if all of us were to have that mindset, that attitude, that resilience of Kunta Kinte, who knew so well by changing my name, you are changing my identity, then today we are going to start having a new conversation. We need to be thinking about reclaiming African epistemologies. Epistemologies is the way we know. It's about knowledge, the way we understand the world. It has always been at the core of African society. Before the colonizers came, Africans had their way of knowing things. It was rooted in the culture, in the community, spirituality, and observation. For purpose of clarity, epistemology is the branch of philosophy that is concerned with knowledge. And it asks specific questions. For example, what is knowledge? How do we know what we know? What counts as truth and justified beliefs? What are the source of the knowledge that we are learning? Is it the perception that were given to us when we were in class? Reasons, memory, traditions, and testimonies? What are the limits of this knowledge? Ladies and gentlemen, schools did not come with the colonizers. We had our own education system as Africans, remember? We could sit down under a tree and an elder will come to counsel us. Our girls will be mentored by their aunties. And young men went through an initiation which turned you from boys to men. How you are supposed to take care of your family. How you are supposed to be protecting your family. We went through education. We had faculties of medicine, ladies and gentlemen. We had our own medicine which we were using to heal ourselves. We had faculties of agriculture where we were taught how to prepare seedlings, how to prepare land. Today, the governments are being colluded and compromised to go into the world of GMOs. A seed that you plant today, and even as you harvest and take a meal out of it, you cannot replant that seed. This is the time we are now missing how our grandmothers and grandfathers used to prepare the seed and put it somewhere at the top of the kitchen preparing point where the smoke will keep the seed alive until that day when the planting season comes. And that seed will always be replanted and replanted and replanted even after every harvest.
Mr. Gerishom, 1 minute and counting, please.
Thank you. To move on, how are we going to reclaim our African language? Remember, language is the carrier of our culture, the vehicle of thought, the mirror of people's souls. To lose one's language is to lose one's identity. Why must African child learn to say good morning before he learns to say hushere, before he learns to say habari yako, hujambo? Why have we accepted that learning and speaking fluent English is a measure of our intellectual quotient? Isn't that colonization enough to make us think about how we can reverse this? And if learning good English is the measure of intellectuality, the creation of industrialists, then it's important we remind ourselves the economies like in China, they don't learn English, they learn Chinese. The industries in the economies of a place like Japan, they don't learn English, they learn Japanese, but they are strong economies. It is time to start unlearning what we learned yesterday and start relearning afresh. As I conclude, how are we going to reclaim our African philosophies? Every society lives by its philosophy, its understanding of existence, morality, community, and destiny. Colonialism taught us that Africa has no philosophy, but Africa had and still have deep philosophy of life. Ubuntu from South Africa reminds us, I am because we are. It is an ethic of community and independence of shared humanity. In my conclusion, it's important that we understand the path of rebuilding or decolonizing Africa will be number one on educational reforms. We have to sit down and change our curriculum for the sake of the future generation. Number two, we have to come up with a language policy. African government must elevate indigenous language in school. Parliaments, courts, and media. Kiswahili already is an official AU language which unifies the entire Africa. We can do things better. I miss and I remember in 70s when I was starting my school, I used to be taught mother tongue in my first 3 years in school. I don't know where that disappeared to, because later on we came to find out that it was a competition of who knows to speak English better than the other. English is not a measure of intellectuality. 3, knowledge systems. Let us fund African research, document indigenous wisdom. Let us support herbal medicine, traditional conflict resolution. The storytelling, it must remain as valid as it was during the times of our forefathers. Number 4, the philosophy, the philosophical lessons. Our leaders, scholars, and artists must articulate policies and create work rooted in African values like Ubuntu, like Harambe, like Sankova.
And finally,
the Pan-African unity. Because no single African nation can achieve this alone, we must unite and work together as a team. As I stop there, I want to thank everybody. Let God bless Africa as we soldier on together for one Africa, one passport, one currency, one destination. Africa is one drum. We only have several beats, and that's what makes the music. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gerishom Okonda.
Free your mind now. Be part of the People's Pan-African Parliament. The Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusabe.